Thank you, everybody, and welcome to the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting of the 1st of July 2020, pinch and a punch for the first day of the month. I declare this meeting open at 9 o'clock, and I'd like to advise meeting attendees that this meeting is being audio recorded. Let me begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and their elders past, present and emerging. I believe all councillors are here. Yes, they are, so we have no leaves of absence to declare. With your indulgence, councillors, I am going to jump around in the agenda a little bit just so that we can get staff back to work rather than keeping them here while we have our very interesting debates. So I'm going to move straight to item 8.1, which is the Unite and Recover Community Stimulus Package Grant Program. Before I proceed into discussing it or moving it into confidential, do any councillors have any conflicts of interest they'd like to declare? Cool. There being none. Did you want to move into confidential to discuss this item, councillors, or are you happy to? Yes, please. Excellent. Give me 1 second. I've got to find my reason. Here we go. Councillor Bradley, would you be happy to move us into confidential under section 2751C of local government regulation for the reason that due to information pertaining to the 2020-2021 local government budget?
Yes.
Can someone second that, please? Thank you, Councillor Russell. All those in favour, raise your hand. Are you in favour of that, Mayor Power? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We will now move into confidential. I'll have to ask members of the public to please leave the gallery, and the recording of the meeting will cease while we have confidential discussions. Councillor Karansky, are you offering to move the motion?
I'm very happy to move this report, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Bradley, are you offering to second that motion? Councillors, the motion on the screen has been moved by Councillor Karansky and seconded by Councillor Bradley. Can all those in favour please show your hands? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you, Dr Scott Burke and Kamal Panisi, for your help. Councillors, we'll now move back into the regular sequence of the agenda, and we'll go to item 4.1, which is MC in Development Assessment. So Director David Hanson and DA Manager Stephen Ball have come to the front, and we'll go to 4.1, which is MCUI 282019, Proposed Food and Drink Outlet at 258 Bengley Bay Road, Cornubia. Would you like to speak to the report, Steve? Before I move into discussion, does anyone have any conflicts of interest on this item? There being none, you're happy to speak to the report, Stephen.
Through the Chair, Councillors received a development application for a food and drink outlet on Bengley Redland Bay Road. In response to the application, Councils received a number of submissions objecting to the proposed development. Officers are recommending refusal of the application given that the need for the development has not been established. There is land within the area that is suitably zoned in which the development could be located, and also due to a conflict with the bushland setting of the area. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Stephen. As the Divisional Councillor, I'll let Councillor Stemp go first.
Thank you, Mr Chair. The community approached me during my campaign voicing many concerns over this proposed development. I encouraged the community to relay their concerns to Council during the public notification period in February 2020, resulting in 28 submissions objecting against the development. Local residents expressed their concerns to me about the increased traffic cutting through Braddon Street from California Creek Road and the associated safety concerns with children riding their bikes to and from Chisholm Catholic College on these roads via this route. Concerns were also raised over westbound traffic along Bengley Redland Bay Road, having to perform a U-turn at the Logandale Estate traffic lights to access the food and drink outlet, an intersection where there was a fatal accident in 2017. These issues were raised by the community in addition to the concerns noted in the report. Overall, the community don't believe this development is needed, as there are other similar 24-hour food and drink outlets within close proximity, outside of an area zoned as rural residential park living precinct. I'm all in favour of good development and creating local jobs, but good development has to be in the right location and meet a need. As a Divisional Councillor, I fully support the community position and pleased to see that the planning scheme has protected the community and would therefore like to move this motion for refusal.
Thank you, Councillor Stemp. I'll take your movement once the debate is exhausted. Councillor Power, as the former divisional councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was the divisional councillor when this originally went through. I acknowledge that at the time this was also mooted in the original development, and that was stopped then. This caused a lot of disruption in the local community when the original application went through. There were a lot of people that were against it. It did go to court. The residents fought it, and they got the conditions that they currently enjoy, with the green space separating the service station from the residential area, or park residential, because most of it is on acre properties. I fully support this. This is a good sign for the community that we are listening to the community, and we're not going back on our original concessions that we gave to the residents. I think must have been at least 15 years ago that this original application come up. So I fully support the officers on this. This is a great outcome for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Power. Councillor Kransky.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say that I commend Councillor Stemp on the work that she's done with regard to public consultation with regard to this particular issue, and I would also like to acknowledge Mayor Power's comments. I'm sure the officers are well aware that service stations / fast food outlets / childcare / whatever we can get across the line in rural areas is actually not a favoured outcome for me as an area councillor, and I'd certainly just like to ensure that we will in fact have this particular item come up as part of our planning scheme review. I wonder, Stephen, if you might comment on that.
Through the chair, that's a question for the Economic Development Strategy Manager.
Sorry, my apologies. Thank you, David.
You can go for that.
Through the chair, I'm happy to confirm that does form part of the considerations for the scheme review. Absolutely.
Thank you. I look forward to the review.
Thank you, Councillor Kransky. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you so much. I know I was with Mayor Power voting against a number of these type of items last term, and I'm happy to second the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bradley. Just before we go to the vote, I'd just like to say how impressed I am that the planning scheme is working in the community's interests. A lot of times council is criticised and the planning scheme is criticised as not representing what the community wants, but in this situation it's delivering exactly what the community expects, which is they want to maintain the rural amenity of the area, and the planning scheme is supporting that. So while I accept that these sorts of developments are often controversial and will be part of the review, it's just fantastic to see that the planning scheme does protect the community's interests when we need it to. I have Councillor Stemp moving and Councillor Bradley seconding. Can I please see a show of hands to support the motion on the screen? That is carried unanimously, noting that Councillor Wilcox is not in the room. We'll now move. Thank you very much, Stephen. Do you have any GB for us?
Through the chair, no, I don't.
Councillors, do you have any GB for the Development Assessment Manager? No? Thank you, Stephen. You can sit down and I'll get Dave Radich, Oh, do we even need Dave for this one? Yeah, we do. I'll get Dave Radich to come up as the Manager for Economic Development and Strategy. Councillors, the next item is item 5.1, unallocated state land, lot 984 SL 8515 at 159 Kingston Road, Underwood. Before I move into discussion, do any councillors have a conflict of interest they'd like to declare on this item? There being none, you can speak to your report, Dave.
Through the chair, so from time to time the state government will come to us offering us land that they no longer want, and seeking our interest to see if we would like to purchase the land off them. So this report discusses that. So there's a site out on Kingston Road which is currently zoned mixed use. The state government has written to us and asked us whether we'd be interested in purchasing this property. We did some internal discussions with the divisional councillor. We talked to the Hugh branch and the Parks branch to see if this was something that council would be interested in acquiring. The outcome of that investigation was that while the site has some environmental benefits, it can't really form part of the overall park network that we have in the area, so there's no real benefit to us having this land, and that the tenure should really remain with the state government. While it is zoned mixed use, which is an employment generating zone, there's a significant amount of constraints over the land, which really means that it's unusable. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions on this item, councillors? There being none, can I have someone move the report, please? Thank you, Councillor Bannon, seconded by Councillor Murphy in my blind spot. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 5.2, which is the Invest Logan Q3 report for 2019-2020. I'll call the acting CEO of Invest Logan, Anthony Jones. It doesn't look like Bo Jane wants to join him. She's happy to sit up the back. Councillors, I've discussed this with Anthony Jones prior to the committee, and he's happy for the report to remain public. It doesn't need to be moved into confidential unless you actually want to discuss the numbers.
Great.
And if councillors are happy to proceed that way, you just have to let me know if you do want to discuss numbers and move into confidential. You want to move into confidential immediately, or just after, let him speak to his report first and then move in?
Afterwards.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bradley. Do any councillors have any conflicts of interest they'd like to declare before I open the report for discussion? There being none? All yours, AJ.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay. Good morning, councillors. Thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate the opportunity to come present the Q3 report. These are a great opportunity for us to give you a direct line of sight into our operational activities. It's quite useful for us to be able to convey our day-to-day activities and certainly those key milestones that we continue to achieve. I'm also cognisant of the fact that we'll be catching up over the next month or so to get down really into the strategic nature of Invest Logan and how we can collaborate with you as our shareholder, and certainly a deep dive into the financial strategy and where together we can work together on taking Invest Logan forward, and certainly wanting to achieve what your expectations are in that regard. So without further ado, I might jump into the presentation itself. As you're aware, this is the York. It's certainly our flagship project at this stage. It's a 7-storey commercial building down in Division 12 in Bengley on York Street and John Lane. It's got about 4,000 square metres of commercial office space, and then it's also got 4 what we call Soho tenancies for small business as well, a couple of retail spaces. Most importantly, this is going to create 100 construction jobs over its 18-month construction period, and deliver more than $40 million over the term of the project. And further to that, some of the community benefits are also around our upgrades to John Lane, which is above and beyond what we would normally require to do as a developer. Now, I know this report goes through to the end of March, but certainly I wanted to share this milestone and celebrate this milestone with you as well, which was the sod turning happening on 5 May. And it was a great opportunity for us. Sorry, can we just go back a few slides? Yeah, thanks. A great opportunity for us and a new council, a new shareholder to certainly put Bengley and Logan on the map from an investment and an activity perspective. It certainly comes at a really important time, particularly around local job creation, right in the midst of the COVID pandemic, and certainly got some very good coverage at a state level. Just turning over to the next slide, please. Just a very quick update for you. We're just about complete in terms of our bulk excavation, if not already. We're talking probably less than a metre to go at this stage. You can see that the walls for the first level of basement there have been completed, and they're getting ready to do that second level as we speak. Importantly to Councillor Murphy, the realigned John Lane will remain in place to mid-August, and that will be then open as it is originally. And then the substructure will be completed such the basement levels will be completed late September, early October, and that's when we'll start to see the building come out of the ground. So things overall going very well on the York Street project. We're working very closely with Robert and his team around the fit out for the tenant there, and that's progressing well. Next slide, thanks. Just a very quick update for you on this project as well. You would have seen this when we gave our induction briefing. It's the delivery of 2 3-bedroom NDIS houses in Marston. The concept designs for this one is now complete. We're now in the detailed documentation, just doing a little bit of work with the building certifier around that. We'll go to tender in August and start construction soon thereafter. We're delivering this through a bit of an innovative partnership with Compass Housing, who will be the operator of the facility, and then also Blue Chip, who's the partner for our development side. Next slide, thank you. This is the third project which will get a start on construction this year. This will be late July, early August for kickoff. It's a mix of small business, units down in Berrinbar. This is the last lot of land that council had as part of the Southwest 2 estate, and it was a parcel that we bought, in the process of finalising acquisition from council. We did have to slightly delay commencement of construction while we gave some further consideration to the sales risk around the COVID-19 pandemic. But I think, as you would all be aware, industry and that mixed business activity is continuing to fire through Logan. So we've got a fair bit of confidence that we'll deliver this project to market well. And it did start actually marketing on that yesterday. It's slated for construction to be completed at the end of this year. Just on the next slide, I just wanted to give you a bit of a highlight on some of the other activities in the pipeline. Now, for all of the projects that we look at, and 10s, 20s, 30s of projects, 1 or 2 will proceed to actual reality. So it is a bit of an attrition, but it's important that we do get the right projects. There's a couple that we're looking at the moment around business centre activation, and you'll see these are the 3 themes that we talked about last time. Business centre activation, sport and community infrastructure, and health and education. We're looking at a site in Logan Central that's surplus council land. We've got a potential tenant in mind there that we're working with from a design perspective. Bengley, we recently acquired some land down there between Main Street and Kent Street. There's a great opportunity there, but obviously working through the opportunity there. Certainly in the current climate, there's a change away from demand for office space, so we're looking at some other alternatives, whether that's short-term accommodation or whatever it may be. I know there's some other opportunities in Bengley as well, Councillor Murphy, and Springwood as well. Certainly looking at opportunities in that regard. It's a bit of a tough market right across those 3 centres at the moment. I guess an example of that is some of the leasing through Springwood has been particularly slow, so we really need to secure a tenant to underwrite the commercial nature of these projects before we get them started. Sport and community infrastructure, certainly one that I'll be keen to discuss with you when we talk about that more strategic focus later on in the next couple of months, is the Park Ridge project. Certainly we're doing some more market engagement with potential operators at the moment just to help finalise that strategic business case, and that will really give us the tools to be able to talk about the nuts and bolts and how that works with you and the council officers, so we can take that forward as an opportunity. Health and education, what isn't up there is our ongoing relationship with Griffith University and also Logan Together. Obviously the uni's going through a bit of a challenging time at the moment, and certainly keen for us to continue to partner in that space as they help work towards their vision. We're also part way through planning for an integrated childcare and family GP outcome at a site in Marston, which is surplus council land. The negotiations with the childcare operators have been a little bit slow at the moment, as they've been focused inwards on maintaining the operational tempo for their businesses, particularly with some of the challenges that they've had around the government funding requirements. So that's really a bit of a snapshot in that regard. Finance, it's been a very busy few months for us in that space. We had a board meeting last week where the budget for 2021 has been signed off. So there's a range of operational savings that were realised in that space. There's a lot of coordination and reconciliation between Invest Logan and LCC as related parties. Obviously our accounts get incorporated into the Logan City Council accounts, so there's a lot of work at audit time there. Just a reminder, as we are a beneficial enterprise under the Local Government Act, the Queensland Audit Office also does audit our accounts as well. So there's a clear line of sight there. Like Council, Deloitte has been appointed as that external auditor. A range of other things that have been going on in the background as well to support our development activities. Key to that has been securing development finance, the construction finance from ANZ, and been working with LCC around that. But certainly there's been a lot of documentation, a lot of effort focused on getting that finance in place. Just on the, sorry, couple of slides ahead, thanks. Finally, on transparency and accountability, just a reminder that we are absolutely committed to best practice benchmarking for our governance frameworks. Most of our operational policies and procedures are up online. Very much so, we're committed to continuous improvement in that space, so we do improve them as we do see fit. Beneficial enterprises, the state government have released a discussion paper, which I'm sure you may be aware or will be aware of in the near future. It follows the, I guess, commentary or the challenges that were had, particularly around some of the Ipswich beneficial enterprises, and proposes a range of improvements, governance improvements for both the shareholder and the beneficial enterprises themselves. I'm pleased to say that Logan already complies and demonstrates consistency with all of the new measures that they're proposing to put in place. So there's 2 or 3 that are on our side of the fence, and there's a couple more for Council's consideration as well. So we fully support the proposed recommendations as part of that process. Certainly, if there's anything that we need to do to support you in terms of that submission or supporting, demonstrating compliance with that, we're more than happy to provide that information. And finally, in terms of workplace health and safety, absolutely, it's always important to keep you abreast, and certainly as I do with the board, abreast of our activities. We're implementing a very specific workplace health and safety management system, given that we are moving into a construction phase of our life now. So there's a whole range of different risks that we need to take into consideration, and just wanted to give you confidence that there's systems and procedures and reporting that is captured in that space to ensure that we're complying with our obligations, our positive obligations in that space. So look, that's for me a very quick snapshot. Certainly happy to take some questions and talk through any of those opportunities that maybe you have. Thank you.
I'm mindful that Councillor Bradley wants to move into confidential to ask a question. Councillor Kerensky, did you have an open question?
I do, thank you. First of all, I just wanted to say to Anthony how good it is to have you back here for the report, and I'm really thrilled to see so much of this report presented in an open format. And I certainly welcome the opportunity for you to come back quarterly and present in an open format so that the community can keep abreast of what the great work that Logan is actually doing. My question was actually with regard to COVID-19, and you did touch on it. And it's about I realise nobody has a crystal ball at the moment, and you did talk to challenges out there in the market, but do you see COVID-19 as having a significant impact on what you're planning to roll out in the next 6 to 12 months?
No, not in, through the chair, certainly, Councillor Kerensky, not in this next 6 to 12 months. It's probably beyond that, and that's why, for instance, some of the broader pipeline projects that we are looking at, we want to look at all of the options. For all of our projects, we have a development strategy that's considered endorsed by the board, and that considers the broadest spectrum of development outcomes and focuses in on what we want to deliver in that space. Certainly, I think, as part of that strategic discussion we may have, if we look at office accommodation in the key centres, I think there's going to be a little bit of short-term struggle in that space. But over time, I think there's actually an opportunity for places like the city of Logan, when there's going to be a realisation that, particularly for the big businesses in the Brisbane CBD, we don't need all the people coming up from the Gold Coast or from Logan, even southern Brisbane, into the CBD. They may go 1 or 2 days a week, but there's an opportunity for more suburban or more regional workstations and work opportunities. So I think over time, places like Springwood, particularly with the bus station coming through, are really going to work, absolutely work. It's just a matter of timing. But more broadly too, I think we, as an agile company, need to be able to pivot, as all the consultants like to say. So if there's a greater focus on what are the key needs for the region at the moment, it might be community and sport infrastructure. How can we help deliver those needs, particularly for those growing regions of Greater Flagstone and Yarrabilba, through Park Ridge and the like.
And that was something actually in another forum with councillors most recently. We were discussing the importance of community infrastructure and our community infrastructure strategy and moving forward. And, the partnership arrangements that Invest Logan are potentially able to facilitate and be active partners in. And you touched on that before, working in the areas of education and also in the areas of health. Not a question, more a waffle. Just wanted to say that I certainly welcome you thinking creatively outside the square. I think that we fall into the notion that Invest Logan effectively is a income generating arm's length distance from council, but the reality is your mandate is also to provide for the community and for the benefit of the community. I wonder if you could comment on that.
Yeah, through the chair, you're absolutely 100% correct. And if you go right to the top of our structure in our constitution, it's, yes, we're a for-profit company and that drives the culture in the business, but social and community outcomes are actually listed there as tangible outcomes. And for us, that's really, really important. And if we can work with the council officers and yourselves to be able to deliver some community infrastructure years ahead of when you could have otherwise done it through traditional funding methods, because we all know that there are always pressures on capital expenditure. If we can come up with an innovative way to actually get it done and get it done earlier, then isn't that a win for you, us and the community?
Awesome. Thank you for your latitude, Mr. Chair.
No worries, Councillor Kerensky. I'm glad you acknowledged there's some waffle in there though. Councillor Stemp.
Through the chair, I'd just like to ask if I can get some more information, not now, but in the future, about the Logan Home option you've got down there for Chetwynd Street, because I've sort of spoken to a few businesses that may be keen to be coming into that area, so I'd like to find out some more information, please. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, certainly we can take that offline, and but happy to come and meet with you or provide you some more information. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Stemp. If there's no more questions that can be asked in the open, would Councillor Bradley like to move us into confidential under section 2.7? Bear with me while I go and look it up.
2751C.
1C. Under section 2751C of local government regulation. Would you like to provide a reason, Councillor Bradley, to discuss matters in relation to commercial and confidence?
Yes.
Yep, no problems. Councillor Bradley has seconded. Moved. Can I please have someone second that we move into confidential? Thank you, Councillor Fraser. All those in favour, please show your hand. That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Could members of the gallery please make their way out of the area, and we will stop the recording. Councillors, we've returned to open meeting and you have a motion on the screen in a moment, which will be to receive, I imagine. Thank you, councillors. You have a motion on the screen. Can I have someone move that motion? Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Can I have someone second that motion? Thank you, Councillor Stemp. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is carried unanimously, noting that Councillor Kerensky is not in the room. Thank you very much, AJ. I appreciate your time coming in today and your detailed explanation. I also want to echo Councillor Kerensky's words that having these conversations in an open forum as much as legally possible is really helpful to us and to the community to dispel some of the rumour and myth that are going around Invest Logan and show them what good work you're doing. So keep it up. Thank you. Councillors, we'll now move on to the Health, Environment and Waste report. But before I do that, I neglected to give David Radich an opportunity to be questioned over GB. Does anyone have GB for the Economic Development Strategy Manager? You do, Councillor Bradley?
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Dave. I was just so excited to hear from Invest Logan that I couldn't help myself. See you later, guys. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. It may very well be confidential, so please stop me if it is. About Springwood Town Square. I'm not sure where that's at the moment. It was in the local plan.
Through the chair, so Springwood Town Square was in the local plan, then it was removed from the local plan. So in the current version of the planning scheme, it's not in the planning scheme.
Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering if
Maybe we
might have to go
can go into confidential.
Do you want to go into confidential, or do you just want to have a briefing about it?
No, I'd like to go into confidential, just a bit so other councillors have a perspective as well.
No problems. Would you like to move us into confidential under section 2751C of Local Government Act on the grounds of commercial in confidence?
Yes,
or is it?
Definitely.
Yep,
and
no
my
problem.
apologies to the audience.
Would someone like to second that motion?
Mr Mayor has seconded.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. All those in favour, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. That is lost. So councillors don't want to discuss it at this time? Councillor Bannon.
I just think we could talk about it after. We've got a lot to get through and we could do a briefing on it.
So do you want to do an all-councillor briefing on it?
Councillor Bradley wants us to be an all-councillor briefing, but...
I think you need to know what... Yes.
Yeah,
So yes, an all-councillor briefing?
Yes.
Fantastic, cool. So I'll get you to flick myself and Dave an email about what you want it to cover to make sure that we get everything. And then we'll book it in for one of the briefing sessions we have during council week.
Thank you very much.
No problems. Thank you very much, councillors. Is there any further GB for the manager? Dave, do you have any GB for us? Thank you very much. Now I'll call Michael Asnikar, the manager of Health, Environment and Waste, to come and speak to items 6.1 and 6.2. The first item is 6.1, the Upper Oxley Creek Plan. Do any councillors have a conflict of interest they'd like to declare on this item? Great. There being none, you can speak to your report, Michael.
Thanks, Mr Chairman. This report presents the Upper Oxley Creek Plan, which is the most recent catchment initiative delivered under Council's Rivers and Wetlands Recovery Plan. It aims to complement the Brisbane City Council Master Plan for the Lower Oxley Creek, which councillors may be familiar with. The Lower Oxley Creek, though, has a very different existing land use profile to the Upper Oxley Creek, the area in Logan City. Therefore, the respective plans, whilst they're complementary, they are very different. Our Upper Oxley Creek plan was developed after extensive community consultation, which strongly indicated that the creek corridor is a highly valued natural asset that should be preserved and enhanced. Given the majority of the Upper Oxley Creek runs through private property, the plan has an emphasis on objectives and actions that support local landowners to protect and enhance their part of the creek, which ultimately will then benefit the creek more broadly. The plan itself is produced in a style that can be used by property owners and other stakeholders to provide information about the creek, case study examples, what they can do and how they can find out more about Council's support programs. Council's existing conservation incentives program, for example Land for Wildlife and Habitat Connections, will be the primary program used to deliver many of the outcomes of the plan. The other actions include ongoing works with the likes of the Oxley Creek Catchment Association and the Greenbank Military Training Area to deliver future on-ground and community activities. The plans presented today for Council's consideration.
Thank you, Michael. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Wilcox.
You just mentioned, through the chair, sorry. You just mentioned the Greenbank Military Training Area. What have they done with the community around Oxley Creek catchment? Because I've never seen anything.
Through you, Mr Chair, I'm not aware of specifically what they have done to engage the community, but as part of our community consultation, we definitely engage them as a stakeholder, and we are also have had in the past engagement with the training area in terms of assisting and supporting actions they can do within the training area to enhance the natural values of the creek that passes through that part of the...
Okay, so it's more that they're a stakeholder because they never do anything with the community, unfortunately. Another question. In the key drivers bit, on the third one, waterways and wetland habitats. So I think this one, it's in the Upper Oxley Creek up in Spring Mountain. You've got the majority of waterways in the catchment are in natural state, blah, 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 blah. Room for improvement, potential for these concrete rock areas to be naturalised to improve ecological condition and connectivity. I think this is what I'm having an issue with some residents because they've put it under a bridge where the water comes down off Spring Mountain, but the little catchment that they have leading into the Oxley Creek catchment area there isn't big enough for the rainfall that comes down. So the residents that back onto the reserve have had a 1 in 50-year flood at least 3 times in the past summer with the rainfall and that sort of thing. So I think this is what I'm having issues with a lot of residents down there, that they put all the concrete, they put the rock area in, but yes, it looks pretty, it looks very natural, but it's not good for the water flow and that sort of thing, because it doesn't divert it the way they want it to go when there's a downfall. It diverts it actually the other way because it just doesn't cater for the amount of water that's coming down.
Mr Chair, probably my answer to that is any naturalisation of a waterway needs to have regard to ensuring a no worsening effect in terms of water flow. So that would be a conversation we'd have with that particular property owner if we were asked to support any works that they plan to do on their property.
It's not, they don't want to do the work on the property. They bought land on the back of a reserve. There's probably about 5 to 7 houses that bought on the back of a reserve that are now constantly getting flooded because of what was done under a bridge leading into a new estate. Oh. It was, yeah. So it's underneath a bridge. All these rocks have been put in.
Yeah, that's a very specific issue that we take on notice and engage with our river and catchments program.
All right, so I think I need to sit down with you, because reading this is more where I'm going with it and stuff like that. So I think I need to catch up with you about it.
Yep.
Thanks, Michael. Any further questions, councillors? Before I take Tony Hall, Councillor Hall.
I'd just like to say I'm supportive of the direction where this is heading. We've got to do as much as we can to protect some of these wetlands and some of these natural, ecological sites like this. And I think this is a movement towards, doing that. And I'd like to see more of this from council in the future, because, once we lose these things, they're gone for good. And we need to do what we can to kind of preserve some of these sites. I understand that it does have impacts on, some people's properties and whatnot, as highlighted. But I think we need to be doing more of this to, preserve the ecology and the environment around Logan as much as we can, so that people, people have something to look at in the future and to admire and to enjoy, because when they're gone for good. And that's what I'd like to say on that.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. And I agree with you. I think this report has highlighted how unique and precious this catchment is. And I think it's really exciting that members of the public, private landholders, as the custodians and stewards of that land are engaged and active in wanting to preserve the ecological value. And that's what's great about reports like this. It illustrates that our community cares about the environment, not just our council. That being said, there's no further questions. So would someone like to move this report, please? Thank you, Councillor Stemp, seconded by Councillor Hall. All those in favour, please show your hand. That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, we have a completely non-controversial and very boring subject, item 6, that I'm sure no one will want to discuss in any significant detail. Item 6.2 is the covering report for the on-demand curbside clean-up service options. Councillors, this is a confidential report. Before I move into any kind of discussion, does anyone have any conflicts of interest they'd like to declare? There being none, do you want to move immediately into the confidential aspect of this report so you can ask questions? I'm getting nods. Can someone please move me into confidential under section, bear with me, section 2, hang on, section 2751C, we'll use that one a lot today, of the Local Government Act on the reasons of impacts on budget and potential commercial in confidence. The move by Councillor Lane, seconded by Councillor Russell. All those in favour, please show your hands. Councillor Hall, are you in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Can members of the gallery please leave, and we will stop the recording. Sorry, Betty. Yes, Councillor Hall.
I'd just like to say that was beautiful democracy
I'm glad you're happy with the outcome of that. Feel free to do general business where you compliment the chair. Welcome back to the gallery. We have a recommendation on the screen, councillors. We do now.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move it.
Thank you. For the benefit of the audio, I'll read it out because it's different to the minutes, to the agenda, I should say. 1, that Council's curbside clean-up service continues for the current financial year as detailed in option 1 of the report of the Health, Environment and Waste Manager dated 1 July 2020. 2, that the Health, Environment and Waste Manager be requested to prepare a report to a future City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting investigating alternate curbside clean-up services, pending councillor workshops and community consultation. I'll just get one of those services removed.
I think it was options.
You want alternate options instead of alternate?
No, I think one of the services was options.
Curbside clean-up service options.
Oh, service options, sorry. We'll just fix that up quickly. In the meantime, if councillors are happy with service options being there instead of services, I know Councillor Bradley is very keen to move this item.
Definitely.
Would someone like to second that? Councillor Lane has indicated she wants to second it. Can I please see a show of hands if you support that? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, councillors, for your diligence to your role. And there is the amended option, just to make sure everybody's happy. Thank you, councillors. That brings us to, while I get back to my original agenda, to the end of the agenda. Michael, do you have any general business for us? Councillors, do you have any general business for Michael? Noting that you've had a chance to ask for general business of all the managers because they were here today, do you have any for Dave? Excellent. No further business. The meeting is closed.